My name is Anthony Shelton. I'm a business owner here. The purpose of this video is to learn from one another, share our personal experiences, and build our community. I'd like to thank the panelists today for taking the time to have these tough conversations. So I'd love to introduce them to you.
Yes, I'm Colin McDevitt. I'm married to my college sweetheart, Tracy. We have 4 kids and originally from the Boston area and have been in Southlake for about 8 years.
I'm Salima Madani, proud parent of 3 dragons. I'm married to Shafiq Madani, and I'm from Pakistan, but Texas been home for the last 29 years, and Southlake been home for the last 12 years.
My name is Mark Flores. I've been a resident of Southlake now for 3 years, going on 4, I guess. I originally grew up in the Arlington area, moved to Kentucky, been all over the place, New Mexico. Was originally a broadcast journalist, now an attorney, practicing labor and employment law in Dallas.
We are so appreciative for you guys and your willingness to be a part of this conversation. What prompted you to be a part of this group and to participate in this conversation?
I can take that first. So I guess going back to the founding of the Mayor's Alliance, and the events that led up to that, really I was just thinking to myself, how can I be part of the change that needs to happen? And if not me, who will be the people that step up in our community? And I wanted to make sure I was one of those people.
At the end of the day, Colin, that was pretty much the same reason that I had an interest in being a part of the Mayor's Alliance. And as things have progressed and things have continued to move forward, I think it's important to continue the conversation. It's a conversation that's not going away. It's a conversation that's always been there, right? About unity, about culture, about appreciation for diverse interests amongst all the different people. Whether you be Anglo, Hispanic, Black, Latinx, whatever. There's always going to be a need for this conversation, and for no other reason than we all need to know each other. We're all neighbors. We're all part of this community, and that's why I'm here. I want to make sure that that conversation continues into the future.
And for me, I have been volunteering around in our city, Southlake, and around the sister cities in Colleyville, Mid-Cities, and Hearst area. And in my role that I seek is to bring awareness in regards to diversity and the value of pluralism. And so this was the platform where, I could educate my community, my neighbors, and about different cultures, to be part of all these celebration and celebrating all those cultures. So this was the platform where I could, initiate my mission.
Personal experiences can powerfully illustrate how impactful acts of discrimination are, racism, or just any other careless. Would you guys be willing to share any personal experiences and how you felt and how you handled it?
Yeah, I guess that's why we're here, right? I'll tell you this, Anthony, and you probably know this as well as I do. There's all sorts of experiences that we have, as a person of color. And some of them are more overt than others. And I'll tell you, I want this to be clear from the very beginning of this conversation, and that is, that these instances are not limited to Southlake. The way things keep going going these last few weeks and the last few months, there's a painting that's being made of this community, which frankly I think is a bit callous and a bit that's just not accurate. I can say without a doubt that some of the people that I've met here and some of the people that I hang out with, including everybody in this room, are some of the finest individuals I've ever had the opportunity to be with, and I appreciate every moment of it. It's the thing that keeps me anchored in Southlake. Have there been instances of racism in my past? Sure. Who hasn't, right?
Right.
And are they across various different places from when I used to live in Kentucky to Texas? Sure. I've had things said to me that would never be said to anybody else. I've had looks. I've had service issues. That sometimes you wonder, well, geez, did they really not see me, or did they intentionally take the other person ahead of me, or why am I sitting at the back of the restaurant? That type of thing. I mean, I could tell stories just like I imagine most of us could. And are they impactful? Of course they are. I think the real question is, though, not necessarily how it impacted me, but where you go from here, right? I mean, you can take all sorts of different reactions to it. The real honest one is, yeah, it hurts. Yeah, it's frustrating. Yeah, you wonder if it'll ever stop. But at the same time, you also realize that it's not everyone. It isn't. I mean, and at the end of the day, it's also everywhere. So you're kind of like, well, okay, you just kind of deal with it. You move on and keep things going. I think I probably said too much, but what do y'all think?
I mean, I guess I'm maybe the one person in the room who would say they maybe haven't had any experiences of racism or discrimination kind of directly levied at them. But, I feel like in experiencing that through you guys and through people who spoke at the Carroll ISD board meeting, watching those videos for hours of people coming up and telling their story where they've had discrimination. That's what really motivated me to want to get involved and to kind of get out there in the community to show that this diversity is good. We should be celebrating that. And, it's very different than the place I grew up, which was not very diverse. And I always think about my kids, how lucky they are to grow up next to people who came from France or who came from, Spain or Mexico, or, we have people in our community from all over the world, and we have people in our community that travel all over the world. And so how great is it to be able to kind of take advantage of knowing those people and really try to bring some positives out of it.
Living with the diversity is going to be a challenging process. And the work, this process is always going to be in progress, right? So I had issues, I had experience through school, some very heart-aching experience, I would say. Like 2016, my daughter was graduating that time. And you know how they have that planning committee, the graduation planning committee sitting down to plan for ceremonies. So that time when they were planning, it was the baccalaureate ceremony that they do. That time, one of the parents saw the list and she said, oh, we don't have any representation for the student. How come? Since we had all the faith groups representing all the students. But one of the parents said, we don't want anybody in the church from the students' representation or anybody from here. But then again, at the same time, the same people from the community, the members from the community, I would say my lacrosse team, they stood up for us. They said, no, we need to find a representation for our students, for all our students. And so we made a history. 2016, we had the imam who represented all the Muslims in our church, which one of the community members didn't wanted it. But same time, community came together, stood up for us, and because they knew us. The reason they knew us, they stood up for us because we were engaged in the community. We were part of anything going on in the community. We were involved in school, we were involved in volunteer service. So they all knew us. The person who didn't want this to happen, I guess this is how I comfort myself. They didn't know us, right? She was new here, the family was new, so they had no idea. So once you get out, you get engaged in the community, everybody has a story, right? And where you share the story, you get to know the person as an individual, right? And to embrace diversity and inclusion and equality, you have to know this person. So to get to know the others, the beauty of others, and through that, we can create a very authentic relationships and in our community and in our neighborhood. So yeah, those were experiences, but at the same time, there were city people, the community people who supported us.
There's a lot of people that wants to make meaningful, impactful change, but they don't know where to get started. What recommendation would you guys have to where they get started, and how do we, tackle this tough, issue that we're dealing with?
I guess I'm going first every time, huh? I would say, Anthony, they should reach out to someone they know that's involved in other areas. So they might know someone. They might be able to certainly reach out to any of us or to the Mayor's Alliance. They're welcome to attend our meetings every month, and try to get plugged in with a church group or a school group. There's a lot of different I think opportunities, and less so because of COVID. A lot of the programs have kind of been backburnered a little bit, but I think there are a lot of different channels to get involved in. And then even beyond that, there's groups outside of Southlake, national groups that you could be involved in related to diversity and inclusion that could at least get you down that road of educating yourself and thinking more about the subject matter.
Yeah, I think Salima hit on a really good point earlier, and I want to make sure it's not lost. And that is, one, every opportunity comes from a struggle, right? So, Salima's story is a perfect example of somebody where they were faced with some opposition, and because people knew her, that people were able to come to support her. People were able to come to a solution that frankly should have been, the solution from the very beginning. But regardless, she had the support there because she knew the people. She had, she was active. She had neighbors. She got to know those people. And I think, that tale is very, very important. It goes to the question, which is, the first thing that we all need to do, and this, this is perhaps the simplest step and the hardest step at the exact same time. But the first thing that we've got to do is we've got to get to know each other again. And it stinks because we've gone a year interacting with each other 6 feet away or more in this case, we've gone a year not being able to touch each other, not being able to exchange conversations without the fear of wondering whether or not you've been careful. It's been a long year of isolation, and that didn't help anything. Because at the fundamental root of this issue, when it comes to questions of acceptance, when it comes to acceptance of culture, is a base understanding of it. True. And to the extent that that doesn't occur, then everything doesn't work. So the very first step, and perhaps the only step that we really need to do as a community and as people, is just to get to know each other, and not just get to know each other, understand each other. Because if you don't understand, I can get to know you on a superficial level all day. I can see that you're a very sharp dresser and and have a great smile. But I don't know who you are, right? And I don't know what you've dealt with, and I don't know how you see the world. The same way, vice versa, and to a certain extent as well with Colin and Salima. So it's not only just getting to know each other. Or not getting to introduce each other and get to interact with each other, but we got to get to know each other again and understand each other, and that to me is the key step. How you do it? There's plenty of ways to do it. The Mayor's Alliance offers programming, the city offers programming, or you could just go across the street and say, hey, why don't we go have a beer? Why don't we go have a chat? Let's let our kids play together. We can stay 6 feet apart in the backyard, and we can talk to each other and figure out where you come from and all that stuff. It's really that simple. But now we just got to do it.
I think we already started doing that, right? Through Mayor's Alliance for Unity of Culture. The city has provided so many platforms now, and even we started doing it in our group. We started having those meaningful conversations. If you all remember a few weeks ago when we had our meeting, we had those uncomfortable conversations too, but at the safe place, provided with a safe environment. So I guess for the community, there's so much welcome now since cities ready to provide that safe environment where people can learn and educate each other about our values, our beliefs, by respecting each other's value, perspectives, and views. So I guess that's the thing that we were looking for. And our team members were saying, why don't we start talking and having those conversations among ourselves first before we go out and ask community to be involved and have those controversy conversations. So we did have that a few months ago at our meeting. So I guess we started doing it. What we are preaching, we are practicing that.
Sure.
So we would like our community to know that Mayor's Alliance of Unity of Culture has this mission to work to strengthen, bridge, foster a diverse and inclusive Southlake. So somehow reach out to us. We are here. And it's just that you need to come in with open mind, open heart, and ready to educate yourselves. That's the only way you will be able to see the beauty of other people.
Yeah, and I think you have to just be able to take that first step. And Mark alluded to that. Sometimes the hardest step to take is just to decide to get involved or to actually get involved. And I know I've told these guys the story, but a couple summers ago, I had already been involved with the Mayor's Alliance, but I got an invite to the Islamic Center of Southlake summer picnic. And, my kids were kind of grumbling about me dragging them there, but, what a great afternoon that was. We got a tour of the facility and got to break bread and share food with members of the community. And, my kids ended up, knowing classmates there, obviously. And, that was just a really rewarding afternoon. And granted, that was before COVID, when we had a lot more leeway to be in person, but hopefully we're going to get back to that point relatively soon where, and I think we've had this conversation too, just about how much the in-person connection works better than the online connection. I think we see a lot of division online, and, I've started just try to stay off of that as much as possible, because I don't think the positive gets lifted up the way the negative does, and we were just talking about that on the way in here.
Yes.
So, how can we get back to back to being in person and really connecting with one another on a legitimate basis?
And I just want to make sure though that because I think everything that y'all said was right, but at the end of the day, this isn't just about diversity and inclusion. It's about just being a neighborhood again.
Yep.
I mean, it is a simple step, right? It's a very simple step to just go out and get to know your neighbors again. But God, man, everybody's rushing back and forth to work. Everybody's got kids. Everybody's got all their own little things, and I mean, at some point, we just, and to a certain extent, that's the nice part about what's happened over the pandemic. I've gotten to know my neighbors more in a more personal, intimate way than I've ever known them before. I've had conversations with them. I've actually, exchanged names with them. And that's important. And now after that, it's going to be the next step, right? And I'm hopeful that we can, while COVID has certainly impacted our ability to get together as a community, it hasn't necessarily impacted our ability to get together as neighbors and to recognize each other as neighbors. Now comes the next step, right? I know their names. Now I got to invite them to the house for a barbecue, right? Now I've got to invite them to the house to hang out. Oh, anytime. But that's the next step, right? Yeah. And then after all that's said and done, maybe they'll start to see the world from my point of view, and more equally important, I'll see the world from their point of view.
Right.
It's a two-way street. I've never once thought to myself that, damn man, nobody gets me around here. No, I probably don't get you either, and it's okay. I mean, to a certain extent, so long as you acknowledge it. In particular, I'll tell you a story real quick. It's sort of that exercise. That point of my own personal bias. I was at at a steakhouse in Tulsa with my father. And we were sitting there, and there was some sort of oil equipment that was out there in the front. I can't remember what's a sputter, I think is what it was called. I can't recall. But my dad and I were sitting there looking at it, and there was an older white gentleman wearing the red hat, the red MAGA hat coming up. And I could see he was coming my direction, and I have to admit I was getting a bit nervous. And then we started having a conversation. And he told me and explained to my dad and me how this piece of equipment worked. And you know what? to this day, that's one of the best conversations I've ever had with somebody. And it made me feel good about where we could be again. You know, everybody has their different opinions about life, their different viewpoints. But at the end of the day, we're all human. And we all want to know about the world around us, and we want to know about each other because we're all in this together, you know, regardless of the rest of it. You know, my personal biases were wrong. His, maybe we're wrong too. I don't know his personal biases. We didn't get into that part. But I can speak on my part. And you know what? At the end of the day, I realized something that day. It's like, you know what? We're all together. We're all human. We're all going to do this regardless of the rest of it. But we got to get to know each other.
Yes.
That's the most important. You know, we got to get to know each other, and then we got to understand each other. Because if we don't take that second step, if we just said, hey, hey, that's knowing each other.
Right.
But if we didn't take that, if the two of us didn't take that extra step to understand each other and to understand each other's story and viewpoints on this piece of equipment, something would have been lost there. A great opportunity would have been lost and a great lesson.
Very true. And it seems like relationships. I'm hearing it a lot from you guys. You know, relationship. And I think if we have the relationships and we take the initiative, you know, to bring our communities together by, you know, getting out of our comfort zone and going and have those tough conversations, or just have it, you know, initially just having a conversation, I think we'll find out that, you know, we're actually more alike than we're not. And you know, personally speaking, I see, you know, so much from some social media and the media and just really, you know, other communities out that just, you know, we don't take that first step to, you know, let's have that relationship. Let me get to know my neighbor. Let me get to know some people in the community. Because I think if you start to do that, you'll start to see that, you know, and these guys are pretty cool, or we have some of the same things that we like. So I like that point there. I'm hearing a lot of relationship, and I think that's huge. That's what this, you know, Mayor's Alliance is we've done. I mean, we've had some great relationships. We've had some tough conversations. I mean, some really tough conversations. And not only that, we take it a step further, not just having those conversations, but how do we get the community, you know, together to have these conversations and push this tough issue, you know, forward. I hear a lot of diversity and inclusion. I think that's the hot word that everybody wants to throw around now. But are they actually taking the necessary steps to bring the communities together by having those relationships and then having those tough conversations? Because I think if we do that, you know, it makes the community that much more stronger. So.
And I would just add too that, you know, when we talk about these tough conversations that we're having, you know, it doesn't mean that somebody's always got the right answer. You know what I mean? Like, we've had plenty of times where during those conversations, somebody said something and we're like, whoa. And then, we, you know, after you sort of explain, like, here's what I'm hearing you say, and this is how that made me feel. And, you know, let me tell you my side of the story. Then I think that's where you see the growth. Right. So you can't be so quick to penalize people who maybe, you know, just don't know any better and or have these sort of learned behaviors that they're kind of speaking on. And so, you know, you have to allow that opportunity for growth and provide that information and have that back and forth in order to move forward, I think.
Yeah. Which requires a certain level of patience and a certain level of understanding.
Yes.
And tolerance.
And tolerance.
I agree. You know, but I mean, the issue is so much broader, right, than, you know, than persons of color, religion, political, you know, whatever. You know, I'm Mark.
Yes.
You know, and I have feelings and I have viewpoints. And I'm open to hearing your feelings and your viewpoints, and I'll respect them. And I would expect and hope that you would give me the same respect in return, you know, for mine. And at the end of the day, we come together in agreement on some of those. That's great. If we don't, that's fine too. But I respect you as a human being,
Right.
Regardless of all the rest of the window dressing that's involved. I respect you as a human being. I respect you as my neighbor, and that's going to go a long way in dealing with whatever issues, to the extent they exist in this community. And I mean, that's the funny part, right? Everything's just so undefined. It feels that way, you know, to me. Like you know, I don't even know what the problem is anymore, except to know that there's a problem. You know, and I think the root cause of the problem is that we don't know the problem. We don't know the problem because we don't talk to each other. But hopefully that changes. I'm very hopeful because I see a lot of good here.
Even during the pandemic, you know, when we had that power outage, houses flooding, neighborhoods were having leaks, you know, houses. Anthony, you would not believe our WhatsApp group of, by the way, I have to give a shout out to my neighborhood, Estes Park. you would not believe. There were people, the husbands were not home, and the wives are putting, what do I do? There's a leak. And there were these people from a neighborhood, they were just going with those, what is it called, wrench and all those equipment. Okay, let me come. I'll send my husband. Somebody's saying, okay, I'm sending my son to help you out. On the video, on the WhatsApp group, they're sending them how to stop those, water leaks. So this is where, you get engaged, you get to know. I mean, after that, they were trying to thank everybody, whoever was part of this, helping each other. So this was the time where we got to know each other more. We went to each other's houses to do something, and they will remember this thing for a long time, because this was the history making, right? What happened during that blackout time. No light, no water. So there were people just back and forth. And you wouldn't believe, there were some people who were asking for the vacuum dryer, right? So how many people have it in the neighborhood? So they were trying to make sure that if one person gets it, they were putting second one in the line. So this is what we needed from our community. And if we can keep this continue, before that, I think not everybody knew each other. But that time, everybody was ready and to go. So even to come out to all these events that city is providing, which is under the leadership of Mayor Laura Hill, her vision, how to keep a community engaged and informed. So maybe, this is the time. If we all can just have one relationship around us, imagine the network, how it would be, having that diverse friendships around us. That would be totally different thing. Very totally different thing. It's just we have to get out of that comfort zone. And I did that today, so yeah.
Well, it's awesome. I love that. So, I have a young daughter, and it's important for me that she grows up and appreciates the world, and the world appreciates her for all that she can be and the potential that she has. I know she's going to encounter some differences, some difficulties. How do we work with our children to develop strength and resilience within them around this tough topic and issue that we're dealing with today? How do we make it a better place for them tomorrow?
That's a loaded question. You got more than a few issues to unpack in that one. First off, we got to do a better job ourselves, right?
Right.
I mean, that's number one. And that's and that's not pejorative on anybody. I think it needs to be understood that when I say the we, I mean the collective we. I mean all of us. Yes. Whether or not you're coming at it from my point of view or somebody else's point of view, it doesn't matter. We just got to figure this out and figure out a way to make the world a better place, period. What that means, in the future, who knows? We can always make it better. That's the part that I've never really understood, which is, at the end of the day, there seems to be, discussion about, keeping things, good. We're in a good spot here. We're in a great place. The funny part of it is I don't disagree. We're in a great place. I mean, all you got to do is look around this place and realize, wow, we got it made. We're very, very fortunate to be in the city of Southlake. But here's the question. Do we want to build a better Southlake? Or do we just want to stay where we are? Personally, I want to strive to be better. I want to be better than we are. That should be everybody's goal, right? So how do we get there? Well, we've identified at least one issue, which is maybe we just don't know each other well enough to be able to work together to strive towards certain goals and certain aspirations. And I think that's the key, right? Is just to make sure that, again, we have that requisite knowledge and understanding of people and mutual respect for everybody's individual differences in this world moving forward. And I'll tell you, if I could teach one thing to my kids, it's mutual respect. I mean, that's the bottom line, is at the end of the day, if they can expect that in return for the respect that they're giving, we're going to go a long way. And my kids are going to go a long way in this world, because, that's not just a diversity issue. That's an everything issue, right? Everything's centered on the respect that we exchange with each other on a mutual basis. And if we could get to a point where we all just mutually respect each other, regardless of our beliefs and our immutable characteristics, we got it made, then we can start working together again. That's all. That's where we are at this point. And I think we're closer than look. I think we're closer than people like to think. I think we're really, really close to making a breakthrough here. You know, I think the last year has been a situation where we were forced to interact on a very, very local level. I mean, I have not spent so much time in the city of Southlake since March 2020, right?
Right.
You know, none of us have, you know, except for those of us that went to work, but, you know,
Right.
I mean, a lot of us were all in our homes, and then a lot of us were all, you know, doing laps around our neighborhood, right? You know, because we can't go to the gym anymore, you know, and we're all waving to each other. We all know who lives in our neighborhood for the first time. We're all seeing each other. So now is the time to build on that, to break through, to understand each other, to have those opportunities to really exchange on a local level. And then at that point, the world's our oyster.
Yeah, I mean, I think to get back to the question about how do we sort of model for our kids, and I know that's what you were saying, Mark, is that we need to step up ourselves and sort of be good examples for our kids. And that's, again, one of the reasons why I wanted to join the Mayor's Alliance was to just show them that if we want to make a difference, then we should try to make a difference if we can. And, you know, in terms, you know, you're never going to hit them all out of the park in parenting 101. But, you know, I've found that over time I'm able to, you know, correct my kids when I hear them saying something and just say, hey, have you ever thought about what someone else might hear when you're saying what you're saying? Or, you know, to just be cognizant of what, you know, how you're portrayed or what you put on your phone or out into the world that way, and how that might come back to you 10 years later. And, you know, we see a lot of examples of that in sports, you know, somebody who's canceled because of something they said 10 years ago. So, you know, just trying to be an example, trying to provide opportunities for them to, you know, just even get snippets of the kind of conversations that we're having, or, like I said, dragging them to the Islamic Center picnic, you know, exposing them to things. We all like to travel various places. That's a similar exposure. You can get that right here in town if you don't, you know, you don't have to look too far to find that here in Southlake, which is one of the great things about it. So just trying to keep that growth mindset of, you know, exposing them to different things to try to raise their consciousness a little bit.
So to your thing about ICS, the picnic, I mean, I got so many emails and texts saying, is it okay? We have never been to the masjid before. When we were hosting this, it was like an open house. So I said, it's okay. You can come in. It's an open house. Our students are there. We'll give you a tour. And that fear of unknown is not good, right?
Yes.
So there were so many people who came in and they said this was our first time that we stepped in the masjid, and they were so excited about it. Next day they were talking in school that, yeah, we attended the masjid, you know, we went to the masjid and we had this picnic. So we had everybody from all parts of life from Southlake. We had people from school, leadership from city, we had board people from school, we had chambers, we had neighboring, our neighbor cities, different faith group people, we had neighbors, everybody was there. I guess you all witnessed that one. And they all, yeah, you was there. So they were like, you know what, we are so comfortable now that we know about you all. We know about different prayer places, right? Before that, they just knew about their own, right? So that was the day they learned about the masjid. And it's okay for everybody to come in. It's not that we are just excluded just for the Muslims up there. So there was such a nice emails and feedbacks that I got saying it was such a nice gesture that we opened our masjid for people. And that's what we can do. Once you get to know people, you get to love them. You make friendships.
Yeah, so there's two aspects of what you all were talking about, and I couldn't agree with you more. The first part is you got to make the invitation, right? Yeah. You know, you got to make the invitation, but the second part is being willing, you know, like Colin was, to expose, you know, your children to that culture, and of course not only expose it to them, but expose it to them with the right mindset, right? You know, I'm sure discussions were had. You know, stop grumbling. you're coming, and come
Yeah,
with an
that was
open
definitely
mind.
said.
You know, and more importantly, come with an open mind because you might just find it's kind of cool.
Right.
You know, right? And I'm sure you know that happened. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, and to a certain extent, you know, I've worked to do that with my own kids as well. You know, to expose them to the different areas. You know, and of course it's done in sometimes a more you know, overt way, like, you know, an invitation to a cultural event at a place. Sometimes it's less overt. You know, like a drive, you know, through different areas, different type of, you know, cultural neighborhoods where you see things that you don't necessarily see here. I mean, it's all part of it though, right? You know, and with the base understanding that there's nothing wrong with any of it. We're all here in this together. There's a mutual respect that we all have for each other. They have a mutual respect for us. We have a mutual respect for them. And, you know, to the extent there is an us and a them, but you get what I'm saying.
I do. Exposure is key. And I don't know if they're going to cut this out or not, but I feel like I just speak from my heart. You know, there was times when I was growing up that we were homeless and didn't, you know, we didn't have a place to stay. And my mom would actually drive us through Southlake, me and my sister, and we would just look at all the houses in the community. And I remember driving down, you know, White's Chapel at times, and here we are homeless, but we're looking at, you know, just different communities and a total different, you know, environment, total different education, different expectations, different education, and we were just, you know, 30 miles south of here over in Fort Worth. So it's not like, you know, it was a far drive because it really wasn't. So kudos to her for exposing me to that. So now, hindsight, you know, the seat I sit in today of having a very successful business out here, you know, it kind of blows my mind at times, honestly. And I'm just, you know, sharing from my heart that, you know, to touch on your point about exposure, because I think that's huge. I think when you are exposed to a lot with the right, you know, mindset, it gives you a better and deeper understanding. And I think we should definitely take, you know, the initiative, you know, to get out of our comfort zones and to, you know, go and do those things. You know, let me go and meet someone that has a different culture, you know, different faith, and get to know them. Because I think when we do, that's how we collectively, you know, strengthen the community. And I think it starts at the community level. And I think if each individual community starts to do that, you know, we'll strengthen, you know, each other, and it'll grow up, and then we'll make the world a better place because we're taking our time to get out of those comfort zones. So I definitely want to touch on that point.
And, you know, equally important, Anthony, I mean, you just illustrated the point right here, which is, I mean, you know, I just learned something, you know, fairly deeply personal about you that I didn't know, you know, and I'm not sure if Colin and Salima knew, but, you know, at this instant, you know, almost automatically, you know, I see a different side of Anthony. I don't know that I understand you, you know, I understand you completely, but, you know, I understand that there's more to you than again, you know, the person that's moderating. And, you know, I mean, to the extent we can all share stories like that and further our understandings of people as real people.
True.
Yeah.
But, and you
Real
guys hit a home run
examples.
earlier. I mean, I think, you know, so many people, you know, see the outside and they don't see the heart. And I think, how can we walk around more in this community to show our heart? So, I mean, obviously more stories like this, more communication like this, more, you know, fireside chats like this for sure. You know, that way we can really, you know, not just say we're going to do it, but we do it. But we have those tough conversations in a safe environment and take the initiative to get to know each other. And I think when we do that, I mean, it's going to strengthen us for sure. It's going to, you know, strengthen the city of Southlake, and it just kind of grows from there. So, is there one thing in the next, you know, year that you'd like to see happen within the city to, you know, push along this agenda?
Oh, that's easy. I want to see conversations like this happening. Okay. Right?
Right.
I mean,
Yep.
I mean that's. And I thought we were providing an example.
Well, that's why we're here.
Yeah.
That's why we're doing
exactly.
this.
You
And
know,
the reason is that because we had this conversation. I mean, instead of before we came out here, we tried to do it among ourselves. Our committee. You remember when I invited all of you that let's go meet outside the meeting, you know, meeting zone. We came to my place, and I just said, you know, we just wanted to know each other, who we are working with. First, we wanted to know ourselves, and then we wanted to come out and do this. So I think we missed you on that day. You were at your daughter's practice.
Yes.
So we did that among ourselves, our committee, whoever could made it. Some people were on Zoom, some came in. So we tried to get to know outside that meeting zone, just to be like a real people, real way to share who we are, what we do, how we feel. And now today, I think we are ready to invite our community to come and have these conversations. But we have like coffee and conversations. We have done previously. We have tried our youth involved, the event that we did with our police department, where have that communication and to be at the comfort zone. And then we had used the art contest, how to express yourself. All the youth had participated. They put it in the art, how they feel about Southlake, and what they want to see in the Southlake. So I don't know if our community had a chance to look at all those artwork. It's still on on our Facebook page, on our city page, I'm sure, those artworks. So we have taken the initiatives, and now is the time that community supports us, get engaged, get educated about our neighbor, get to know your neighbor, and that way we can love our neighbors more, make more relationships.
I've been waiting for a return invite to Salima's because the food was really good.
Yes.
So you gotta come in person for that.
So yeah.
I think to their point, into what we've been talking about in terms of connecting with people, I'm really looking forward to having in-person events again when we can get back to that, and just I feel like that's the best way for those connections to happen. And Celebrate Southlake has been a great event that's coming up. That'll be the virtual is my understanding, but I know the in-person one was really great a couple of years ago. So, there's further opportunities for folks to get involved and to really take that first step to kind of do something a little bit outside their comfort zone. And, I'd like to see more. We did a Dads and Brews event a couple of years ago, but it was really just a one-shot deal. And I was kind of hoping there would be something that would be more regular, quarterly, or I don't know how often you would want to do it, but just so you could connect with people that aren't in your normal circle or that you normally run into.
And the trick of it is that it doesn't require the Mayor's Alliance or the City of Southlake to do any of this. True. It could help with coordination, and I'm hopeful that over the next few months, we can coordinate additional in-person or virtual meetings. Amongst our neighbors. I mean, I would love to see a situation like this with 4 or 5 people in a Zoom conference, sitting there having a conversation like we're having, discussing things that, frankly, shape their view of the world as they grew up. Kind of the same way I grew up, in Arlington. My parents dropped me off in north side of Fort Worth to be raised by my grandparents, and for 5 years, while they were doing their work in Dallas and Fort Worth. And, eventually Mom quit her job so that we could, go to the Arlington School District and do our thing. And, of course, being raised, in 2 different areas, the north side of the Fort Worth and North Arlington, 2 separate sort of dichotomies there that, again, unless I told you that, and unless I told, Colin and Salima that, they wouldn't understand, the way that my growing up, impacted, my thoughts on the world and the way that I've progressed. I think they knew I was from Arlington, but they probably didn't know the other part. So it's all those little things, those intimate conversations that we can have with each other. And it doesn't have to be with the 4 of us in a room. It can be with little squares on a box on a TV screen. But it's just important that the conversations happen. And I think that's the key, to moving forward. If there was one thing I would hope would happen within the year, is that whether it be virtual or in person, and beer would be nice.
In person, yes.
Then that I want these things to happen. I want us to start talking to each other again. Yeah. Let's start building on what we've already built over the last year, because I think we're starting. I think we have. I think we've made progress. Now it's time to build on that progress and be able to work together again.
Yeah.
Right. Anything you want to share?
I'm so ready to be in person, to meet people, and I'm ready to. I'm just committed to spread that love there. I want to leave the legacy for our youth, like they all talked about being a role model. I want to be involved. I want to be engaged. I want to be kind, continue to do what I'm doing, to be there for my neighbors, and yeah.
Well said. Well said.
Well, thank you guys for viewing this. This will also be on the Celebrate Southlake website, and we actually want to take the initiative to, ask you guys to have these tough conversations, within the city of Southlake, and not just take it local, but let's take it up from there. So thank you for watching. We appreciate it.